Today, we become legends.
Bastet. She has 9 lives but is already down on 4 of them. Will she be reworked again, or will this be her final form? Let's take a look at Bastet's full history in Smite, including her 3 reworks and how she got from this to this. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more Smite history and reworks on the channel. We're getting real close to 100k now and we'd love to have you on board. But without further ado, let's jump in with Bastet's decade-long journey in Smite. So Bastet is actually one of the OG gods that released with the game's closed beta on May 31st, 2012, so she really is one of the longest standing Smite gods. However, that doesn't mean it's been a smooth sailing for her. She's undergone 3 reworks and countless balance changes since then to try and make her more fun and balanceable. Let me know how that's going for her in the comments. Is Bastet in a good place now, or does she need another minor rework? Well, regardless, her original kit back in 2012 was very similar to Bastet 2.0, but with a few key differences. First and most obvious, she had a completely different passive back then that reduced her first 9 respawn times of the game by 15%. Not a great passive by any means, it wants you to die 9 times just to get max value from it, but I do like the flavour on this one, and it was buffed very quickly to 25% reduction, which is a little more passable. In a way, it's a bit like a warped Jingwei passive at that point, except you have to die to get value, you can't just recall faster like Jingwei allows you to do. The rest of Bastet's launch kit wasn't much different from Bastet now. In fact, her basic abilities have been the most constant thing about her over the years. If anything, it's her ult and passive that get constantly changed. However, just because something wasn't broken at launch doesn't mean it can't be made broken later. It's the high-res way. And so about a year later, on March 28th, 2013, Bastet was given the ability to pounce back even when under crowd control and remove those CCs from her when she does so. This change was absolutely nuts and one of the biggest buffs of all time, despite looking like a small buff on paper. Essentially, after this change, Bastet could jump into the backline with impunity, and even if she gets stunned out, she can just jump back and remove the stun. This change also came after a large buff to the total HP of the cats from 500 to 850 at max rank and 300 to 650 at rank 1. These 2 changes combined made Bastet a bit of a monster in the coming months. Razor Claws was nerfed in scaling, which is overall unimpressive, but I just wanted to point out that Bastet 2 used to have 140% scaling. Yeah, for those that complain about new releases in Smite being too OP, it was the same back in the day. 2 things in Smite are certain: chests and OP god releases. Moving on though to October 2013, and Bastet gets her first ability change. The 9 lives passive was replaced by Open Wound, a passive she held for a long time until it was again replaced later in her life. But all good things must come to an end, and in May 2014, around 2 years after her initial release and 1 year after the pounce change, it was reverted. Well, kind of reverted. While she could no longer pounce back directly out of CCs, thank god, she did still have 1 second of CC immunity after pouncing, which gave her a bit of time to realise, oh fuck, there's 5 people over this wall, and TP back out. It wasn't as strong as straight up cleansing CCs off of you at any point, but it was still really good, hence why 2 weeks later in the very same patch, the CC immunity was also removed, bringing Bastet's 1 pretty much into line with how it is today. She gets the movement speed, but none of the bullshit CC immunity or cleanse. Things were fairly quiet for Bastet after what I call Bastet 2.0 with a new passive and nerfed pounce. She remained roughly in this state for quite a while before getting more major changes. A quick patch in September 2017 buffed her ult to give physical power for each cat that dies. Keep in mind that only her ult spawned cats at this point in her life. Her 3 was just a line damage en route, no cat. Around this time, Bastet's cats had been nerfed a lot and were getting one-shot late game, so this was a way to still give her some benefit even if the cats get immediately bursted in a team fight by like a Zilla 2 or something like that. However, it didn't really prove enough to keep Bastet relevant, and her rework was announced for the Season 7 launch patch. I'm sure many of you know what happened in this rework since it's a lot more recent than her one in 2013. The passive was changed to mark enemies hit by Bastet, and she gains 20% movement speed while in the Send Trail. Her 1 and 2 remained basically unchanged aside from some misc tweaks like mana cost on the 2 and changing it from a sweep to an instant cone. The 3 again received only minor changes, basically adding the cat to it. I'm sure we all know Bastet's current 3 pretty well, and this is where it took shape, in Bastet 3.0. But the final change of the rework was by far the most interesting. Bastet's 3 cats that she'd had for 6 years up until this point were no more. Instead, she had the Guardians of Bas, which she could call to her side and duplicate her basic abilities, dealing a percentage of their damage, up to 40%. So in my personal opinion, this was the most fun ult Bastet had of the 3. It's essentially a giant stim that amps up your basic abilities to a ridiculous level. Bastet in this state was arguably the most damaging god in the game at the time, not to mention her absolutely gigantic AoEs because of the triple. Bastet 3.0 was hella scary. Again though, she proved difficult to balance in both directions, and in November 2021, Bastet was reworked for a 3rd time, giving us Bastet 4.0. I won't spend too much time on her new kit since it's the one she has right now in game, but her old movement speed tracking passive was replaced with regular and ability lifesteal while revealing God's hit. Her 2's damage was made faster, but the main event here is that the new ultimate we all love to hate. Replacing the steroid ultimate that duplicates her abilities, the new ult of course fires a projectile that stuns and pulls an enemy, deals damage with quicksand, all that jazz. Major nerfs hit mostly Bastet's passive after this rework, hitting it down from a total of 25% against gods and 20% against minions to 15% against gods and a meager 7% lifesteal against minions. Plus more base damage and cooldown nerfs that are seemingly still continuing to this day. Her latest nerf was in patch 9.3, one patch before the one we're on as of the release of this video. So who knows what might be coming in the pipeline for Bastet. More nerfs to bring her in line, buffs if they've gone too far, maybe even a Bastet 5.0 if her current kit proves too hard to balance. Much like Freya, Bastet seems to be in a constant state of flux, bouncing between OP and unplayable before she gets a rework, then just continuing to overperform or underperform massively. What do you think Bastet needs to make her more stable? Let me know in the comments below and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.